leaving the stage all to yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're walking off. We're absolutely walking off. This is good.
This on? Oh, cool. Again, reiterate what Action said. Super thankful for the Vosslers, for Genzio, for all of the panelists and projects that came down, for everybody here that attended and everyone online. Super, super cool day. I also want to express again that this was like an idea about 2.5 weeks ago. And came and said, hey, let's see if we can pull it off in about a week and a half, which I'm not sure why we thought that was a great idea, but it was unbelievable. And so, also again, Genzio and Vossler, you guys' work and what you've done in a week and a half to kind of pull this off was something special. It's kind of a test, and we hope that here in the future, we've talked about kind of throwing out like doing one of these quarterly, every single quarter, and having similar discussions, maybe some more technical, maybe some broader, kind of depends. So, and then the last thing that I'll say around that is that this space is incredible. And so, if any of you guys, anybody watching any of the projects that have watched and want to do something here, please reach out to Vossler. It's an incredible event space. The things that you can do on the screen, quite as amazing these screens have been, you haven't even seen its full ability and how much interaction and how they merge physical and virtual worlds here. So if you can imagine like a keynote, product update, products, all those things, please make sure that you reach out to them. They'd love to host. And so with that, a little bit of closing around Conduit. We are a hardware-based layer 0. And so we call ourselves a layer 0 again because we're the lowest layer, we're below layer 1s, and we do start everything that we do at a hardware basis. That means security, that means identity, we talked about, it means authorization. So I threw out kind of some of the things in the first iteration of the internet. All that happens at a hardware basis. There are different trust levels along the network architecture, so it's both vertically and horizontally scaling. It is a complete mesh network all the way up to the edge. And then I would say that if we talked about our sense of centralization or data center, you would have data centers that are no bigger than like a couple cargo containers, if that. So you want many of them, you want them wide dispersed, and that's for redundancy, distribution, attack vector, single point of failure, everything that we've covered today. The devices themselves are, I think I mentioned this again in the first session, they are FIPS 140-2 Type 3, which is a very high rating, currently deployed in different military settings. They're really, really pretty unbelievable hardware devices. That acts as the master controller on the network to disseminate in a P2P environment and enclose encrypted information. You think of highly sensitive information. From there, we have like a worker node concept, very similar to Kubernetes, if you can think of that, where you're using additional resources, which has to connect to a master or to a secure enclave. Those additional resources will be used in much more untrusted environments. And what I mean by that is like, again, I said this earlier, you don't need to secure your personal data at the same level that you're securing a public-facing website. And so what's happening here is that companies, individuals are choosing what level of trust they want to operate and what action they're taking, and then it's up to the secure enclave to direct and ping to resources to disseminate what can be used and how it can be used across that. From an economic perspective, I mentioned this too, we are turning cost centers into profit centers. So this ability is that you take businesses, you take anyone that has a house, a home, a business, a building, commercial building, a 7-Eleven, it doesn't really matter what it is. And you go back on-prem, you secure your data, you have control over your data, and then it turns it into a mining operation. So very similar to Bitcoin, if we talk about that there is no pre-sale of tokens, there is no sale of token at all. Every token that's generated will be mined based off of a proof of economic activity. It's how, the reason I was focused on GDP is that's how GDP is measured and quantified. So it's your proof of growing GDP. and therefore you are rewarded with a network token. So what do you want to do? How do you win? How do you generate value? How do you generate the token? You bring economic activity in. What's economic activity? It's anything that transacts value. Okay? And so we have everything from smart meters to trust bridges to, these are all components and factors of the overall architecture that allow you to move all the way into POSs, point of sales, capturing value that could be at, from a coffee shop all the way up to a corporate enterprise. And then even further to state, local, and federal government. So there's really not a form factor that can't run on this architecture, which is powerful. I'm not saying they're gonna adopt. I'm saying that we have the ability to walk in, talk to CTOs, CISOs, and prove that the security is at or above what they currently have today. From there, we have, again, we talked about the turning cost centers into profit centers. This is a really big economic factor because most people have asked, why would people go back on-prem? And I think the first thing I said was, well, they're already thinking about it because they're trying to solve for the issues that they have today. But the second piece is that if I can say, let's add a brand new revenue stream that you don't have today to your current model, how does that sound? And those conversations have gone very well. We're launching in Q1 of 25. I would also tell you that we've got about 35 different conversations with MOUs, with businesses. The total amount of economic value that would be in that, and again, this is pre-launch, is about 300 million of revenue. It's a very large amount of economic value that could be moving through the network very quickly. And I would say the only reason we get to have those conversations is because we've taken a security-first approach. If we didn't take that and we weren't having the emphasis on things that they're used to seeing today and guaranteeing that we can, to the most of our ability, secure that value, you just wouldn't have the conversations. And so we're very thankful for the team and what has been designed here. We talked a little bit about the reward system. So the other thing that we did uniquely is that there is a token, and that will be disseminated for, again, capture of value across the network. Also, it'll act like kind of like the network currency, so all settlement will be done in it. There's also an additional second asset, which is the internal rewards network token. And so you have an actual internal token that's CNDT, and then you have an internal reward asset that can be used internally, just like you have airline miles. So the example that I give, because everyone's like, well, great, what do I do with this thing? Is that I'm sitting here and I am operating inside of the Conduit Network, transacting economic activity, and I obtain these points, and I am hosting a website. And so and let's say that Ben is that provider inside the network as well, I can turn around and take my points, and instead of spending with Conduit or any other factor, or any other transmission of value, I would spend with my points. The point is that the points that I obtained in the current state, the current regulations, are non-taxable. And so I just took OpEx of my hosting, and I was able to take those points and spend at Ben, who is also in network. Then Ben can go spend at the next one. So what you want to do, and everyone's like, well, who's gonna come onto this network? The reality is most things in the world today, and the internet today, must run on servers. Everything ends at a server somewhere. Question is, who owns the server, right? The cloud is not the cloud, it's just someone else's server. What we're doing is putting that server power back in the hands of individuals so that they can own their data, so they can monetize that, so they can participate within this network. We are a full replacement for AWS and Azure, as an example, using them kind of as the marker. And so what can you run on it? You can run anything. Anything that you currently run on the internet today. We've talked about, we have our own identity server, so we have a concept for that that's been worked on. We have our own authorization server that's been worked on. We are a DLT. I'm glad that Ken talked about that. It's again, built from the ground up. It's a temporal database, uses PetriNet theory. hyper efficient. So we talk about mining. This is probably another, this is on our website, but a really good thing to note. It's about 1,800 times more efficient than Bitcoin. It's mining. So we can run our algorithm off of about 5 watts, which means that the power and consumption is not going towards solving a complex mathematical equation like Bitcoin. It's going towards resources that the network would need, that someone would need to be purchasing. And all we're doing is quantifying the amount of economic activity that's going across the network and then rewarding through a set mining schedule, which you can also see online. We are in a pre-sale of our in-home devices. I don't know if we've got a, oh, look at that. Oh, a little transparent, but that's okay. Of our in-home devices. Again, I talked about horizontal and vertical. How that'll work. It's great. This is one form factor, right? So you've got a Wi-Fi head unit up top, Wi-Fi 7, correct? Yeah, Wi-Fi 7. The middle module, by the way, these are magnetic and stackable. Middle module is the secure enclave. Lower module is general compute. And so this would be like a perfect edge device that people would put in their homes. They'd have their own closed network. They're going to have all of their identity, their wallets, their bank account information. Again, anything that's highly trusted or need to be highly secured would be in that middle module. And then the lower module could be something that they use at home for their general network, or the likelihood would be that they would be using it or letting the network use it as a edge device for transmitting, and then they can be mined, as an example. Do you need to be doing your own economic activity in order to get mining? No. But your device does need to be involved in the transmission of economic activity. Make sense? Kind of? Now, if you are bringing the economic activity, you are going to mine much more. So the play here would be to be both sides, right? DePIN, one of the DePIN's issue is that it's a double-sided market. It's got supply and demand. What's interesting is why I say cost centers or profit centers is the real target here is the people that have economic activity that are looking to increase a boost on that, and now they're fulfilling both sides of the market. There's supply side and they're also the demand side. We also have a node 0. I don't think we have a picture of that. It's a software. This would be, again, the ability to take over an existing resource that you have. It does take over the entire OS, so that device is no longer usable in any other form or fashion. Okay, it is the networks. Those node 0s must connect to a either secure enclave or a core, one of the two, because it has a secure enclave. And that thing will, again, use it as a resource across the network. And then we've got complete scalability from there. And so going all the way up into what we call mini data centers. And how you would do that is, let's say you took a rack of computers, kind of like similar to what's running this place right here, this entire wall. So an example here is that, Michael, how often does this screen run in an average day? In use, sorry. 3 hours. So it's on 24/7, runs 3 hours. There's a whole lot of compute and GPUs sitting in that server room that's unused. So part of the concept here is when it's not being used, and you can see this everywhere around the world with a lot of different things, when it's not being used, what if those same resources that are sitting there latent are used on the network? And now we've just created a brand new revenue stream for Vossler in the times that they are not using this beautiful screen. That's just one, you can see it everywhere. You can see that a 7-Eleven, as an example, that has unused space, or commercial buildings. Specifically right now, there's a lot of people that are not in commercial buildings after COVID, right? Those are perfect opportunities for. And so when I talk about scalability, everyone says, well, what's the next form factor? Because you saw one form factor. That's not the question, it's 3 questions. How much space do you have, physical? How much internet, like what is the connectivity? And it's not that it's necessarily a hinge point, but there's a reason why we ask that. And the third thing is, what's the power coming in? Then you build without doing the minimal amount of TI. You build a rig that fits that, and you move on to the next location. So you don't go build new buildings. You don't go build data centers. You use the massive amount of latent infrastructure that is sitting in our world today. Look at the city. Look at all these buildings. Look at all the power that's sitting there. You use that and you maximize it and you move to the next location. And now you've got a highly distributed web of data centers and compute that can be monetized. And you have brand new revenue streams for people that were, didn't have that on the business or the building before. So I'm going to stop there. Does anyone happen to have any questions around Conduit after all today, but specifically on Conduit? The last thing, I didn't mention this, Conduit is actually a roll-up of about 9 different companies. It's been in evolution and work for about 5.5 years. We just came out to the world, essentially April. What's that, April? When was that? I can't remember what was yesterday, so. April. But it's been being worked on for a very, very long time. It is a roll-up of, again, 8 to 9 different companies, all of their IP that we're working on, all different stacks of everything that all different versions of the stack that I mentioned here. And we're incredibly thankful for that team, for the minds and the people that have poured incredible blood, sweat, and tears into getting us to this place. But any questions? Thanks.
How does Conduit plan to transfer value between different networks?
Yes, tokenization on demand, or tokenization 2.0. The non-technical answer, because the technical answer is quite long, the non-technical answer is that you're just creating a digital twin of the value that is residing, let's say, on the native network onto another network. So let me give you this example. Conduit's native token will not actually be out on, let's say, Ethereum. We will create a wrapped conduit over on Ethereum. It gets held on the conduit ledger, right? Goes out to Ethereum. It's burned, if you want to come back in, gets burned on Ethereum and then held and released on Conduit. So we will do that with everything, by the way, which means our native token will actually only stay inside. We will literally, anytime we move value in anywhere in the world for us outside of the network, we're going to eat our own dog food, which means we will be tokenizing the value out into other places. Make sense?
I was just curious if you had approached any REITs that are sitting on large commercial portfolios that are underwater right now because everybody moved out.
Thank you for that one. Yes, absolutely. That couldn't be a better question than 100%. It's a conversation that we've got to work through, right? It's a brand new model that they haven't thought of, but you are spot on. They have this massive underwater, right? And their play in the REITs is cash flow. The other thing is that cash flow, how much cash flow can be leveraged in the real estate market is very large. That's great when you have it. When it's been reduced, you have a problem. This is a brand new cash flow opportunity for them on, again, existing infrastructure they already have. And so our concept is walking into them and saying one of two things. You actually have a way in which you don't take any of the usable space. Take the latent space of these buildings. There's plenty of areas that you could take that isn't being used at all, which leaves it open to still be rented, right? But I would argue to say that there's a model here that says that the square foot of value for data and data centers is higher than even the human value. And so they may want to start to look at that. Now, what you don't want and what we don't want is large deployments, because we don't want, again, we're not interested in centralization. So we're not really pushing them towards that. We're saying we're pushing towards this, like, look, just maximize, or excuse me, even use what you have, and then move on to the next location. The REITs are perfect because they're in most locations, right? At least we would say like the pop cities, NFL cities. These REITs are one of the largest holders of the value that is sitting there. They're perfect and prime opportunity. But it's really, we want every single person. Again, the analogy, the best one is what Airbnb did to people's homes, and Uber, this would be the Uberization of compute, right? Is everyone should look at, in some form or fashion, I'm a data center. It might be that in-home device, or it might be 15 racks. Could be anything in between. Great question. Anything from the team? You get anything you guys wanted to mention? Oh, yeah.
Just because you haven't touched on this, can you explain the ROI pool and how it works?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question, and there was actually a point in an earlier session which I wanted to bring this up. The other problem that we have in the current economics and tokenomics that have been designed is we have a very, in my opinion, many projects have a very short-sighted look at creating revenue. But if you're monetizing participation, how do you continue network effect? So we have a lot of projects where if you got in early, it was very, very good. And then there's a drastic fall off. And they've seen a fall off in their network effect. So how do you account for that? There's multiple different levers, but one of the things that we focused on here was an ROI pool, which Brian talked about, which is the capitalization, CapEx cost that you have to get into the network. 23.3% of all, bless you, of all tokens mined will go in an ROI pool. That ROI pool is a FIFO, so first in, first out. Meaning that is when you buy the device, let's say example, the $3,500 device, you go into the ROI pool, as long as the value, or excuse me, the ROI pool has value in it, meaning there's mined activity that's happened, you're immediately paid out, whether you win a block or not. What that means and what that creates is that the network itself is actually capitalizing all the CapEx. Question is in what amount of time? And so we were really excited about this because while there is a fixed supply, while there is a degradation of mining, there's no way to get around that unless you don't have a fixed supply. That's what's going to happen. But what it means is that the biggest weight of anyone that we've seen in questioning whether they want to get into a network or not is what's my ROI? And it's not an ROI as in the profit. They're not even getting there yet. They're like, I have a CapEx to get in. How quickly can I get that back, which lowers my risk profile to essentially zero? Because after that point, even if returns are diminishing, I've gotten my expense back, which is what really people are concerned about. And so our point is that this, again, as the whole network mines, 23.3% of all of it is going into this ROI pool, so it's constantly draining and getting filled up. And the great thing is you can go back into it. So you can play this game of like, well, I'm not sure how much I want to get into. Let's say I want to start with a $10,000 deployment. Awesome. $10,000 deployment, ROI pool pays you back. Then you start mining, creating additional value. You could go another $10,000 and go right back into the ROI pool. Get that paid back, right? So the network's constantly paying for the CapEx. We're really excited about it. We think that it will continue at least to some factor, continue a network effect into the future, even if again the rewards and everything else are diminishing. By the way, when I'm talking about diminishing, I'm still talking 5, 7, 10 years. I mean, there's variables that we don't know what's going to happen, but it's still ways out. That even if that was the case, you still have this other thing that will reduce the risk of your entry into the network.
So with that ROI pool, what prevents somebody from coming along and saying, I'm gonna comp the price of a node and we're gonna do rev share when you get that device, and I wanna get paid first, and as soon as I make my money back, you can earn 50% of the rewards?
Nothing. There's people right now today that are working on that and have figured that out as well. And I think it'll be a really powerful model. So there's nothing that says that anybody can't run that exact model.
What's M&O looking like in terms of
What's that?
maintenance and operations? Like how much does it cost to maintain? How much time, effort to set up? Let's say for a $50,000, $100,000 deployment or something like that. What would that look like?
So first of all, there's a range here, right? The in-home units, that's a plug and play. Don't do anything. Keep power on, keep connectivity to it, right? Standard things like that. If you're running what we would consider like a data center setup, Yeah, there's more because those are also custom builds, right? So you're gonna have to figure out what's the space, the power to it, what's the rack, is it a custom rack, is it an off the shelf? A lot of the blades that would be used in there are off the shelf. And again, then node zeros would go on each individual blade. You'd need a secure enclave as a head unit to that setup. And then orchestration, there's an immense amount of the orchestration layer that we've been working on for some time, and the desire there is to automate what people would think of as DevOps as much as possible. And when I say that, I think we're targeting close to an 80% of automation, but is there going to be something? Sure, but the second thing I'll say is it depends on what you are actually doing. What service are you providing? An example would be if you're just racking GPUs in there, and all this is for inference and deep learning, as Ken was talking about, there's not much to it. It's access. But that might be different if you're running closer to a data center model where you have different services to providers. You may have more hands-on. So my point is that you get to decide based off your capabilities on how you operate in the network. There is no one size fits all, literally in both the vertical and horizontal sense and the persona of the participants. And we're going to need them all, right? Because the use case of the market demand is going to need them all.
Quick question. Does Conduit Network have its own token? And if so, how does it meet the Howey test?
Yeah, it will, it doesn't. And the biggest way that it beats the Howey test is that no token is ever sold. Period. I'm speaking to Gary right now. No token is ever or will ever be sold. Now, there's a couple different things. Bitcoin did the same thing. It was then sold on secondary markets. This was then confirmed with Coinbase recently in a ruling that just because something is sold on a secondary market doesn't make it a token. The issuer or generator of it, which is us, we are not selling any tokens. It will absolutely be through our version of proof of work, which is proof of economic activity, which means all tokens from the beginning will be mined based off of that algorithm. Will tokens find their way to secondary markets? Likely. When people have it in their hand, I'm sure, but we aren't selling. And so the difference with and again, I'm not an attorney, but we've got a great amount of legal around us. The big thing on the Howey test, there's multiple factors, but the big thing, which goes back to oranges, remember this, right?
Yeah.
And the big thing is that where is the investment contract? So that didn't inherently make an orange a security. The investment contract did. So the point is that we're not selling. There is no investment contract. There is nothing being sold in relation to the token. It's being generated by proof of economic activity on the network. So that means the only way to generate that token is by having one of the devices in the different form factors and providing that value.
Is there any direct marketing, i.e. people actually going out to local businesses and trying to get them to use the network?
We would hope so. And the reason is that everyone operates in game theory. The only way to win this game is economic activity. So that means that if you have decided that you want to participate in the network and you're going to make an investment into the hardware, we would hope that you would also be having conversations with everyone around you in every business going like, hey, stop running on X, Y, and Z. Why don't you run on this network and get rewarded, right? Because again, how we all win is the mutualization of all value that's created. So yes, you want to. The network itself is going to be doing plenty and has been doing plenty, and we will continue. Some of the larger operators, like if someone became a mini data center, we'd expect them like a data center to go get customers. We just think that they have a better mousetrap to go to the market, whether it's through security, because again, what those operators could be saying is you have two choices. You can still host with us, and then people would say, well, what's the difference between you and AWS? Okay, well, two things. The network infrastructure is set up differently. The second thing is that I actually trust you. I know who you are, and I trust you, and I want my business to be with you in whatever I'm asking you to do. I think most people in this setting won't necessarily do that, which is the hosted model. They're going to want to host their own. They're gonna wanna come back on-prem, they're gonna wanna participate, and then they're gonna wanna run their own economic activity through there to mine more tokens. I think that's probably the more common use case. But it's either. Anything, oh, go ahead.
You were off of proof of economic activity. Can you explain how to mine a block and how that works independently from other builders?
Yeah, so crop is the measurement of economic activity, okay? So the best way to, I'm trying to give it some mental models that the rest of blockchain would understand. Think of crop as gas. Gas fees. Sorry. Think of it as gas fees. And so the difference with us is that your accumulation of crop, there's a very specific table that is set to this amount of crop that is hit triggers this mineable block. And the difference for us is that we have multiple blocks inside of phases. Okay? So there's 60 phases across the table. What's the total block count?
A lot.
It's very specific. I don't know it either, so I can't, it is a lot, right? There's 60 phases across that. So your crop contribution measures the economic activity. That triggers the mineable event for tokens. The amount of tokens that are mineable across the blocks continue to diminish, very similar to what Bitcoin's doing, right? They go through the halving, very, very similar. It's on
1 billion.
It's a 1 billion fixed supply. That's how many blocks there are?
Oh,
Yeah. Billion fixed supply, that is correct. So it's through crop contribution. What's cool about that is that this is not necessary, so the network has a minimum, we have 2% minimum, right? And that's basically to take care of anything that's on the infrastructure level and continue for the continued evolution, involvement, or excuse me, innovation and maintenance. But each individual has the ability to increase that. And you go like, well, why would you want to increase? If I had a $10 transaction, the network was gonna take 2. Why would I wanna bump that up to 30? Because you might be closer to your threshold of crop contribution, which triggers a mineable event. And the value of that block is likely a whole lot more than the 30% crop contribution. So this is gonna come down to math. People are gonna be playing this game and figuring it out. But if you really play this out in the game theory, you want to actually increase your crop contribution above the minimum. Also, the points that you get internally tied to your crop contribution. So the amount of crop that you contribute, you get back the next month, 1-to-1. So a lot of economic levers here for to incentivize, you want to make crop contributions, which again is how we measure economic activity. Great question. What else?
52 trillion.
52 trillion blocks?
No, right, because we go and we invert at one point.
That's right. There you go, 52 trillion blocks. It's gonna take a while.
Alright,
Anything else?
I guess I'll go for it. Time and time again, I see people in crypto, starting projects and doing things for a number of reasons, and a lot of them, just aren't good, to be honest with you. You were pretty successful. You have a pretty successful past, exiting companies, doing really cool stuff. And now you came back to essentially a startup. Why are you doing this?
My kids. We talked about trust earlier, and the reality is that I am going to speak for the team and everyone that is around this, because it is absolutely one common thing is that we're not okay with where we're sitting in society today in many ways. I don't believe that technology is the answer. I believe it is an answer. It is something that can be used. But the thing that binds this team wholeheartedly is that we absolutely desire and are trying our best to fundamentally build things for a better future. And it's not for this generation, it's for the generations to come. And that's why. It's really as simple as that, is that I look at my kids and I want to do everything that I can. So does everybody else, to give them a better future. Thanks, action. I don't think I can say anything more after that, guys. Sorry.
Have you got a more specific date than Q1?
No. No, just there's too many moving parts and variables. I can promise you this. We don't want to go a day over after what we have to after 5.5 years of building. I promise you that we're wanting. But there's also the same thing, which is we're not willing to do things before we're ready. So a testament to also what Action was saying was that we could have done this very differently. We could have rushed to market, we could have raised money a whole much different way. We could have blasted out marketing and made all these claims. The reality is that this is probably it is the most brilliant team I've ever had the opportunity to work with. It's also the most integrous team that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And they were not willing to do things until the claims that we thought could happen were proven first. And that's not gonna change. We're not gonna change that now. We're not gonna keep rushing. And so I don't know the exact date, but I know this, that when that date comes, it will be because it's ready.
Can you walk us through what it looks like to get signed up and start investing, or because I know the Q1 is.
Well, you can't invest with us. We're
not investing like that. I mean like buying the network.
Yeah, so the pre-sale is going on for the hardware, right, and Node Zero, so that's one way. We also have here, one of our sponsors is Rogue Evolution. They also are helping us build custom units. So that'd be another form factor. If you're looking at a different form factor than the in-home, I'd say absolutely connect with them. Right now, today, the only way to start participating is the hardware, because nothing else is, and really, to be very clear, until the network goes on, you're not mining, nothing's happening. But it might be a good idea to get hardware put in place and get prepared, right? Q1 is not that far away. And there's lead times on all the build, on all these devices, on any custom, so it's like, if you're interested in being ready for when the network goes live, this are probably conversations you want to start having right now. That is the only way to participate. There's no token, there's nothing else, so you can't go out onto exchanges. It's your path into this, just like in Bitcoin, is to mine.
Yep.
So get the hardware.
We are tracking purchase times of hardware and will likely release mining in tranches to people that were in early. So there is opportunity to be had to be mining early if you purchased earlier.
Was that heard online? Okay, yeah, Ian, go ahead, Ian. Yeah, here we go. That's great.
I was just saying that we are tracking the time of purchase as people are coming in and purchasing Node Zeros and the Conduit cores. And we will release mining opportunity to individuals in that order, the same order that they purchased in. And so obviously there's going to be a little bit of the supply and demand game that we play at the very beginning, but we think that flywheel is going to take off fairly quickly. But your best opportunity to be mining from day one would be to purchase early. So we're in phase. Yogi wants to make it known that we are officially in phase 3 today. Right. Do you want to quote the prices since you have it right there?
The price for Node Zero went up today to $10.59, and the price for Core is $41.59.
What else? These are great questions. Anybody else? Awesome. Okay, well, how else? Make sure you follow us on all of our socials as everyone, continues to show. Telegram, Discord, X. X is probably our most prolific. It is our most prolific platform for like real-time updates as things come out. I will tell you, we're not ready to announce it, but I am going to leave you with this cliffhanger. There is some very, very big things in the works that we hope and anticipate to release here in the next couple weeks. Again, we don't know a timeline, but please stay tuned. And I think that as long as these things that we've been working on are able to come to fruition, I think they will be announcements that some of the blockchain space has never seen. And we're really excited about the future of Conduit, its capabilities, the amount of people that will be able to adopt it, the amount of people that are adopting it, and where we're going to be in the future. So thank you guys again for all of DePIN Day. Can we give a round of applause for everyone that worked on this?
Do you know when the next one will be?
Next DePIN Day. We don't know officially, but we've talked about every quarter. We kind of wanted to see how this went and what the feedback was. I think it's been incredible. I think online was amazing. Anybody have a number?
Over 20,000.
Wow.
Over 20,000.
Wow. Good.
Wow. That's incredible. And so I would assume, based off of that we're going to do it again, and we'll kind of fluctuate the topics. We'll fluctuate people that come in. But yeah, I think that this is something we should continue to do. And then again, I want to reiterate, it's not just DePIN Day. Anyone that wants to use this space, please reach out to the Vosslers. And I literally cannot speak highly enough. This space, their talent, their production elevates your brand beyond belief, and it's so good for our space, this nascent space of technology. It's really cool to walk up and to be like, hey, you've got a stage, you've got production that is at the level of Fortune 500 companies. That's amazing. That's really, really cool. So I hope that more people in our space, GeoNet, IoTex,
I already talked about you.
Flood, there we go, Flux. I really hope you guys, because the other thing that you're going to be able to do is come back and imagine doing full product rollouts and keynotes and whether it's a collaborative space like this or it's just for you guys, right? You could really put on some incredible display here. So we hope that you go home with that. And we're so thankful that you came as well.
Oh, can I just?
Can we give it up?
Did anyone here win any of the giveaways?
I didn't give anything away, so maybe someone that did give something away. I think it was Action. I think he did most of that, and I think he's been giving things away the whole time, if I'm not mistaken. He's basically.
We'll make an announcement on X.
Make an announcement on X. Action, you keep giving things away, we're going to have to either call you Santa Claus or Oprah, one of the two.
Can we go with the third option?
Sure. Come on up, Jonathan.
Can we give Brandon a hand? And thank you guys so much for hanging in there. It's a long day. Here we are at the end. I just do want to reiterate how much it took the entire team and all of these projects working together to make today possible. So let's give a round of applause for every single person. Our key sponsors, if we can get the slide for the sponsors up there. Call out a couple sponsors, particularly AI as our gold sponsor. And then I think we have the other slide, if you can give the rest, the silver sponsor. We had people that helped fund this. And we're going to have opportunities for others to be sponsors for future DePIN events because clearly there's demand. We want to do that. We want to create this space to be able to offer thought leadership and bring the projects together like we did today. And then, like Brendan said, if we can then also bring up the slide for if you are interested in using this space, using our services, we have the Elevated Experience Vossler Studio website that you can scan here, as well as if you want to just we have a form, if you scan the sales slide, that will get right to our team. And we would love to work with any project that would like to utilize this type of environment to do your presentation. to do a live event for you, a live stream, capture, whatever you would like to be able to elevate any kind of experience or launch that you are planning for your future, for your product. We'd love to work with you. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. And I think with that, I think it's a day. We're gonna call it the end of the first Seattle DePIN Day ever. Come on, guys.